Hello, class. Henry Denis, last discussion post. So here we go. Discuss how your perception of crime fiction has altered since the first week of the semester. What has been confirmed from your pre-course perceptions? What has been challenged? How? Why? I would say that personally, a lot of my preconceptions of how crime fiction is written were confirmed, but it was more in the details and the semantics of how stories were built and written and how twists were put into the stories, the plot twists, deductions, how characters were written to be smart or witty or be able to deduct certain things, the way they go about solving crime in their own individual style was changed because I had a very one-dimensional view of crime solvers and investigators from mainstream media with TV shows like Law and Order and Castle and like SWAT and all of those different kinds of shows that go into investigative courses. It always tends to follow the same kind of track where I found that as we went through this course, the different texts that we read very much had different approaches to how to solve crime and how to write a character that's solving crime. So I think a lot of the overall perceptions of like twists and turns stayed consistent with my preconceived notions, but the more interesting and detailed parts of the works which made them unique and individual and stand out from each other, that was definitely challenged with how I thought authors went about writing their protagonists. Question two. So we look back over the course, it appears as if there have been great changes in the genre. However, would a closer examination reflect a still conservative genre that is advocating maintenance of the status quo on most of the bigger social questions, despite some superficial alteration of the small things? I don't think so. I don't agree with that. I think that crime fiction has definitely evolved. Um, it's not a conservative genre anymore because we see that in some crime novels now, right? Like the evildoer does come out on top, right? Sometimes the bad guy wins. We're challenged with having more complex and morally gray characters being written. We're challenged by having, in this day and age, in 2022, we're challenged with having very highly intelligent and competent female leads as well as men, right? So we've broken out of stereotypical gender roles, right? We've broken out of always having a happy ending, right? So I think that there has been great changes in the genre with how dark it can get as well. It doesn't always end happy, and along the road, we have been able to see how the genre shifts from always having the main character and protagonist triumph in the end to potentially having them beaten and you know having the great big bad win. um, okay, question three. Discuss the film you chose to view and briefly analyze how the text either relates or diverges from the larger representation of topics like criminality, justice, mystery, and or detection that we've explored throughout the semester. How does this text build upon the themes and patterns or preoccupations of earlier crime fiction? How does it break new ground or experiment with what we've come to expect from the text in this course? So I chose Knives Out, and I love the movie. And one of the things that I wanted to jump on right now is how does it break new ground or experiment with what we've come to expect from text in this course? And one of the great things about Knives Out is it's been done before, but not very recently, and it's not a very prominent plot line where at every twist and turn in Knives Out, you as the viewer, or at least for me, I was completely sure of the person that I thought was the culprit. And then the next twist or turn would come out, and I was dead set that that new person that I suspected was the perpetrator was right. and it kept on foiling me over and over and over and over again. And that's something that we don't necessarily see very often. Normally, either we have no idea who the antagonist is, or we already know who it is, and we're just along for the ride as our protagonist connects the dots to what we already know. So a lot of crime fiction, and even in modern day entertainment, right? We are purview to the killer or the thief, right? Committing their act. So we already know who the bad guy is, and we're just joining the detective along on their journey for them to discover that. And I think that is an easy way to enhance the way that we read these stories, because we're able to make those subtle connections because we already know how the ending is. We already know who the bad guy is. Um, and as far as bringing it back to the larger representations of the topic, like criminality, justice, mystery, detection, Knives Out has all of that, right? We have our protagonist who is an excellent detective and doesn't give up his opinion, right? We see him collecting all of this data, much like, Sherlock Holmes or Valentine, right? But we don't see his thought process as clearly as we see Sherlock Holmes or Valentine, right? Because that's explained to us through the writing, where in an entertainment viewing standpoint of a movie is we can interpret normally by like facial expressions and what they do and body language, but none of that is given up in Knives Out. We are very much in the dark as to what the inspector believes, and we are left to our own devices to make our own conclusions. As far as justice, it's got a very traditional sense, right? Where at the very end, the bad guy is caught. Um, it definitely wraps in mystery, and it's very dense, right? A lot of twists and turns with all of these different people being interviewed and new information coming to light throughout the whole story. We are constantly being bombarded by new information that changes our viewpoint, and it adds to the mystery because at each twist and turn your opinion is changing and what you think is changing, and that I believe is a very big key to writing a good story or presenting a very well constructed film. And that pretty much concludes my final entry for this class. It has been a joy and a privilege to be along for the ride with y'all. And yeah, I wish you all the best.